The weekend is upon us, so another episode of the Weekendology Podcast is as well. We're the only podcast with the hottest takes, the best talking points, and the stories to fuel your weekend conversations. I'm your host, William Deichley, alongside my co-host, Aaron Berg. Aaron, what are you doing this weekend?
What am I doing this weekend?
Yeah.
I am watching football because, it's the fall and Gophers are ranked. So,
yeah. For the first time, I think Minnesota's 10-0 now or something, or 9-0, and
or we got the eighth seed finally,
wow.
Top 10. So
yeah, it's fall time. Thanksgiving's right around the corner, so football season is well upon us. Well, for anyone not familiar with what we do here at the Weekendology Podcast, each week we delve into new topics related to movies, music, media, sports, etc., and try and challenge the status quo with things we would like to see changed or made better. So we've tackled the boring nature of Hollywood with its repetitive sequels to debating if Americans are overworked, how we would change the PTO and work-life balance system, and even ascending to the heights of interviewing Playboy model Allie Rose, where we took a look at Instagram modeling and her decade-long career. So if you're new to the show, welcome. You can follow us on Weekendology Pod on Twitter. We're on iTunes. We're on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Spreaker, YouTube, everything under the sun. You can also email us at weekendologypodcast@gmail.com. We're also part of a great new podcasting network, Big Red World. They're a cool podcasting network with a community of other podcasts like The House That Rick Built, that covers St. Louis University men's basketball, Red Sons of Cinema about movie reviews, and there's plenty more where that came from. So go and check them out. So everybody, thanks for joining us again. Aaron, we've got a really cool episode today. We're going back into the music scene today, so it's going to be pretty interesting with what we're talking about. Music has kind of changed over the years when it comes to publishing, promoting, and creating. I think gone are the days of kind of the radio plays, or people trying to break it into radio with one big lucky break. In the world of social media, YouTube, plenty of other music streaming sites like Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, all that kind of stuff. There's much easier platforms to kind of lead the way. So, and SoundCloud is one of those platforms as well. It's a really popular music streaming site that has over 175 million users. So it's actually the largest free distribution site for any music artist right now. So we're talking about SoundCloud. Aaron, what do you have any SoundCloud rappers or artists that you listen to?
Yeah. There's a couple. As a fan of rap music, that's the way you got to go.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're gonna just stick with old school rap. If you're gonna listen to the new school, it's probably gonna be a SoundCloud rapper, and that is not gonna change anytime soon.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, I got a couple. My boy Lil Uzi Vert is my favorite, but I could jam to some XXX Lil Peep from time to time. But it's crazy though. If you go, I'll use Spotify and take a look at new artists, and I'll be like, oh, who is this guy? And then I'll take a look and where they started. I always like reading backgrounds of these artists and kind of where they came from. It's always SoundCloud, and it's always these kids start at 16, 17, 8, and then they hit it big at 18. And they're hit the ground running doing that. So it's a cool platform. And as a fan of music, I'm glad that's a kind of alternative instead of trying to get signed by the major label and dealing with all those politics.
Exactly, and I think it's so easy for artists to break into it nowadays. So today we have a really cool special guest on the show. He's a SoundCloud artist out of my hometown, St. Louis, Missouri. He's been producing music since 2013. He's got over 14,000 followers on SoundCloud and is growing pretty quickly. I want to welcome SoundCloud artist Chris Burkart, a.k.a. Bonus Points. Hey, Chris, how you doing today?
Doing good, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem.
Actually, Chris Burkart. Sorry.
Burkart.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll rectify that. So Chris Burkart then. Well, Chris, thanks for joining us on the Weekendology Podcast. So Chris, I've been listening to your stuff for a little while now, and I've got to say, you guys, you have some really good type of vibe for your music and everything. So tell us how you got started into music, and how did you decide to start producing and creating it?
Well, basically, I went off to community college, right? And I wasn't really doing much. I was kind of bored, just, listening to music, working, and listening to a lot of Skrillex and EDM, stuff like that. And I was like, oh, man, I should just try and make this one day. And went out and bought FL Studio, and yeah, just messed around with that forever, just trying different things here and there, and yeah, just kind of went from there.
So, Chris, were you just like sitting in the dorms, and did you? Because when I was in college, that happened a lot, where one guy would download Fruity Loops and start playing around with it, and then a couple other kids would join, and you kind of mess around with it with your buddies. Were you just messing around with it and doing it with friends, and then thought, hey, I'm pretty good at this, I'm going to make this a career? Or was it, hey, I want to do this, I'm going to go full steam ahead and really focus and zero in on it?
I got lucky that I didn't do it when I went to Missouri State. I did it when I was in community college for 2 years. And it was kind of just like I was making, minute-long weird EDM, dubstep or trance or whatever. And it wasn't very good. And then I went to Missouri State and, started to fall off of it for a little bit. And then my friend was like, you don't really listen to that kind of music anymore. Maybe try making something different. And that's when I found like chill hop and the beats and stuff.
Yeah, I've listened to a lot of the different types of that kind of chill hop vibe and everything, and I always kind of came back to your music, whether I was studying or at work, or if I needed to just chill out and everything. It's the perfect type of music to go to. So I want to ask, what inspired you musically, to kind of create that your own genre, because you have your own twist with it. You have some pretty intricate ways that you kind of splice some things here and there. So what was your inspiration behind that?
So I started making the whole jazzy, chill hop, lo-fi stuff like that, and then as it got more saturated with artists, and people were popping up almost every day. Mm-hmm. I wanted to kind of, diverse myself from that, so I started using more funky stuff and really more upbeat and just kind of more something you listen to at like a party or a club instead of just sitting around doing homework all the time.
So when you're making this stuff, you mentioned how you started doing EDM because that's what you listened to, and then it kind of evolved because you listened less to EDM. Do you go just with kind of what you're listening to and take inspiration from that, or do you go half that and then half what people want to hear? How do you decide what you're going to make next? Because your stuff is so different and diverse.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, like you said, it kind of just depends on what that one song is. Like if I'm listening to something upbeat for the week or whatever, I'm like, oh, let's try to make something upbeat, and the next thing you know, it's a dance song, and that kind of turns out to be that. Or it's like, oh, I'm listening to like a rap song, let's have something with 808s and trap drums and whatever. And then it just has my style, so regardless of it's a dance or slow down song, it still kind of all works together, as in you could tell it was my thing.
Very cool. Do you listen to any other SoundCloud artists? I think some of my favorites are like Argo Fox, Cubby, Monster Cats. I like Ajuna Deep as well. But what are some of your other favorites?
Some deep cuts.
I went through my playlist.
Do you know any of those people? I have no clue who those guys are.
Monster Cat was so back when I was making the EDM stuff, Monster Cat was huge for me. I was always listening to their stuff, and then that would brought me on to Ajuna Deep and stuff like that, where it's really upbeat and it's played in like festivals.
See, he knows.
That's what the kids are listening to nowadays.
I got it.
I went deep into my playlist. I was like, okay, these are like the ones that I have saved in my playlist. They seem to be the most popular. So I had to throw them in there. So.
Usually I'm the one pulling out all the crazy artists, and now you're just naming off these names. Like,
exactly.
Make that up.
There you go, Aaron.
Man, I got some homework to do.
They're not fake. Chris, I want to ask, where did you come up with the name Bonus Points? I think that's a pretty unique name for your handle there.
Yeah. So. It was all back when I was making the very heavy stuff. The drops were a big thing, or still are, I guess. Mm-hmm. And so it was like, oh, then you have the first drop, and oh, cool, and the little bridge before it comes back again. And I was like, oh, well, I want to change it up to do something different this time. So like an extra, twist in the song has like a extra point. And that's when I was like, oh, bonus point.
Cool. What was it about? So you've been producing music for a couple years now, and you obviously were talking about your rise on SoundCloud. What was it about SoundCloud that you saw was a good place to start publishing your music? I
really just liked the freeness of it. You could just you could upload, or you can upload anything at any time. There's really no boundaries to it. I mean, you could upload 50 seconds, so you can upload, an hour mix. It's just kind of whatever you want, and there's no rules really. So it helps open up the area of like finding new artists and just branching out of stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Did you get on SoundCloud when it came out, or when did you get into fully utilizing SoundCloud to get your music out there?
I think it was about 2014. I started making stuff around 2013, but it wasn't really worthy of being released to the world. So then when it finally was like, okay, this is kind of good, let's put it out somewhere and see if anyone else likes it.
Yeah. And not to cut you off, but that just brings up a point there. When you're making something, how do you decide what's worth putting out to the world and what's not? I mean, because you mentioned, it's not worthy of being online, but especially in this kind of genre, I feel like it's different than other genres like rock, where you think, okay, this is out of tune, or I think most music where you can really pick out to like, no, that doesn't sound good. Whereas your style, I mean, it's so much of an art where any kind of, it could be noise to one person and it could be just incredible to another. So how do you go through that process of deciding, okay, this is ready, or no, this needs to marinate, I need to work on this?
Yeah. For me personally, I just if I'm kind of dancing to it or grooving as I'm making it, that's when I'm like, okay, this is actually somewhere, or this is going somewhere, pretty good. But there's a lot of times where I'll make something like, this is stale. It's just kind of boring. So it just sits in the folder until I come back and try again, or just try something completely different.
So it's got to pass the head bob test.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're not vibing to it, or if you're not liking it, you're on your own, then, what's the point of releasing it, dude? I get that too, because I think it's the same kind of process we go through when coming up with topics for the podcast here. We kind of go back and forth like, oh, we could do this, or, we could do that. And we had a couple ideas and we're like, oh, we're not ready for that yet. It's got to pass. Okay. Can we talk about it for more than 3 or 4 minutes at a time?
Yeah. And it's kind of that balance of, okay, what do the people want to hear, but what are we passionate enough to talk about? Because you can't just throw out, okay. And similar to your stuff, Chris, where you might want to throw something out. You're like, okay, this will do well. People will download this, or at least listen to it. Mm-hmm. But if you're not passionate about it, you can't perform it when you need to perform it. Or like you said, you don't want to show it to people. You're not going to be proud of it.
Yeah. So Chris, you mentioned that, SoundCloud is such a great way for independent music artists to come onto the scene. You mentioned there wasn't really many rules with it as well. Do you think the lack of rules or regulations on SoundCloud has helped or hindered your kind of music career and kind of publishing your own brand?
I think it's a little bit of both. In the beginning, it was really good because I was able to put it out there with no fear of, what happens and where it goes. But I feel like nowadays it's almost so clustered that it can get lost really easily. And so it's nice to have a different outlet, like say these YouTube channels that will promote music, or putting it on Spotify and getting in a playlist that produces a lot of hits and stuff like that. So it's good to have more than just SoundCloud these days, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with so many different types of sites, like you said, there's SoundCloud, there's YouTube, there's Spotify, there's iTunes. You can get it up on iHeartMedia. There's so many different avenues for it, and it's not like the old school where you had to be lucky and kind of make it big on the radio or get signed to a record label. And look at all the SoundCloud rappers we mentioned earlier. They were started on SoundCloud, a free platform. And they made it big, and they made
it big in a year or two. I think that's the really miraculous thing about the music industry nowadays is anyone can do it. Anyone can make it from no one to A-list in a year if they really wanted to, and they want to put their mind to it and figure out kind of the process on their own instead of relying on a big corporation to promote them and to control their music. So I think that's the best part is, Chris, like if you want to make a certain song or write a certain way, you can just go do that and you don't have to listen to anybody. So do you anticipate, because that is still a thing, do you anticipate ever signing with a major label, or if the offer was good enough, would you go that route, or would you just stick to the same route you're doing and just SoundCloud and totally independent?
Yeah, I'll most likely just stick with the whole do my own thing. And, I like to release on labels. Like I'll do, say, an EP of 4 tracks on a label, or they'll ask me to make a song on like a vinyl record that they release, and then they put it on Spotify too and stuff. So I wouldn't really sign with a label, but I've definitely signed certain songs to a label that will be played a lot and just in their rights.
I noticed a lot of your music is very like royalty free. You mentioned in your headers that you don't mind if people use it in other YouTube videos or different types of media, as long as you credit yourself at the end or in the description. How do you go about in kind of monetizing your songs or your own brand and making revenue off that?
So right now it's not a huge thing because I'm kind of still in the process of getting my name out there. And a lot of people don't really use it with the intent of making huge money from it or whatever. It's just a simple vlog, or, they'll put it in like a video of them gaming or something very quietly in the background. But I think if someone were to approach me and be like, hey, we're going to use this for, I don't know, like a Samsung commercial, then I'd probably have to think about it more and see what really comes of it.
You might be having second thoughts then with Weekendology using it.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Well, I think you definitely got the stuff to get it, to that point as well. And with as diverse as your music is, I think it can fit in so many different genres that you're able to convey. Okay, it can fit into the gaming genre, or it can fit into the very chill genre, or it can do like more of the YouTuber kind of vlog genre as well. To go that route. Do you collaborate with any other SoundCloud artists as well?
Yeah, I've collaborated with a decent amount of guys. A lot of the guys I'll talk to before, just kind of like, I like their music, and then, either they'll ask me or vice versa, and then we kind of just chat up a bit and then make a song, and then it turns out really well. And then, next thing you know, we're doing another song, and like I Am Alex, he's another beat maker that I've worked with tons of times. And eventually we're just like, well, let's just make an EP of, I think it's like 6 songs and see where it goes. And it turned out really well. And yeah, it's fun to work with new people because everybody has their own way of doing things that, you see their file of all these, kick drums and snares and what they do with it. And you're like, oh man, I would have never thought to do that until you did it. And now it's changed my whole way of looking at certain things.
Yeah. Would you consider yourself an EDM artist, or is it another genre that we don't know about?
I don't know. Everyone considers me like chill hop or lo-fi or something like that. And I don't know. I haven't really labeled myself. I guess like funky beats. I don't know. It's kind of hard.
Creating your own genre.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. I'm a funky beats guy. There you go.
He's challenging the status quo.
Yeah,
exactly.
I know, right in line with us.
Yeah, exactly with us.
How do you view that, though, for trying to get bigger? Do you think that's something that's going to help you down the line, or do you think that's going to hurt you a little bit? Because, I mean, if you're looking to book a tour and they want to put you with someone else, I mean, to me, if I'm booking a tour, I'm looking, okay, who is similar to this guy? And they might struggle. I mean, do you see that being a hindrance, or is that something that's going to set you apart and maybe surpass other people?
I guess, yeah, it could be a hindrance at some point. I think they'll probably pick the style that it mostly resembles, and then say, hey, look at this guy. Like, I don't know if you guys know, like Grizz or
I've heard of him.
Yeah, guys like that were I guess they kind of did the whole, hip hop, but with a modern EDM thing. And so I could see myself maybe opening up for those guys for sure.
Yeah, I was telling Will, you remind me of Kygo a lot.
Oh yeah, okay,
yeah. When I was listening to your stuff, I was like, yeah, it's not totally like it, but
right.
If I had to compare you, and if I was going to put you on a tour, I think he would be a good guy to put you with. So
yeah,
but I think that's the beauty of just EDM. I'm just going to call that just the blanket term because I don't know what else to call it.
Exactly.
But with EDM, because it's a mix. I mean, you go to an EDM concert, and it's funny. I'll get frustrated because every time I go to an EDM show, and I see Martin Garrix, I want to see him play his songs. Well, I'm there for 4 hours, 3 hours, and he's playing everything. I mean, he's throwing in Drake and he's throwing in like Elton John stuff, and changed it up. You're getting every genre. So I feel like that's a good thing for you, because you have stuff where they can throw into a mix, and then people can go to a show, hear you in a mix that a DJ's working on, and then think, okay, wait, what was that one song at this part? Or if you're on YouTube and they hear a little snippet of your song mixed in there, I think that can carry you forward. So I like what you're doing. I think that's really good, because I think a lot of people get too wrapped up, especially nowadays in music, in okay, I'm picking a genre, and then they just stick with that.
Yeah,
and then their stuff gets stale. So
my favorite part is all the jazz that you incorporated with it.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of jazz music, and some of the saxophone stuff that you put in there. I'm just like, man, this is instantly favorited. It's going to the top of my playlist, and I really love that element with it too. So Chris, you're a big SoundCloud artist. You've got 14,000 followers on SoundCloud right now. But obviously, music is a big part of your life. But do you have any other careers or passions that you focus on concurrently with the SoundCloud stuff?
I try and do freelance graphic design. I went to school for that, and I started working at a paid internship after I left college for a small family-owned company doing some design. Okay. And it was fun, but it wasn't quite for me. I wasn't really a fan of the whole 9 to 5 every day and then trying to cram in music at night. So I realized that I want to do freelancing, and so that's when I started branching out to do that. And I've done some posters, I've done some album covers, did a couple of logos, and I think that was probably the greatest move for me, is because it really works out with the guys in the community of music. I mean, they always need covers, they always need something new, and so it's pretty cool to do that.
Yeah, you really get your name out there. I mean, I think all the people you can meet, just say, hey, I can do this for you, and there you go.
He's still on the media side too, so it's
right.
like you can combine his music and then with all the other SoundCloud artists that he's been in touch with, or people. I mean, it's all in the same genre, so I mean, it makes perfect sense to just be like, oh, I'm gonna do a logo for this person, or I'm gonna do, and
you can make your own stuff too.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay someone to make your merch. You can just DIY the whole thing. Just make all your shirts, sell those yourself, and focus on the music. And I think too, that's good, because that way you, like you said, you get more time to work on your craft and improve, instead of kind of splitting your time between two different things and changing your focus there. So
I think the best about being like a freelance too, at least in my opinion, is that you don't sacrifice creative control.
Yeah.
Like for a music artist, or for even just like, doing graphic design, you're not subject to, okay, I have to do it in this style that my boss wants me to do it in.
You're keeping that creative wheel rolling.
Exactly. Or, if you sign with a record label and they have a certain, agenda or genre they want to do, they're like, oh, you have to make it this way, or you have to use the beats this way, or something, so on and so forth. So, I think that's the beauty of, what you're able to do, Chris, is keep it as, your own creative control, and have the total freedom to do whatever you want with it.
Yeah, it's definitely the greatest thing is, making the covers is probably the funnest thing for me. So to be able to do that for myself, and then if anyone else wants some, it really opens the doors, because then you see that guy and you're like, oh, where'd you get your, album from? I like the style of that. And then they're like, oh, Chris or Bonus Points or whatever, he made that pretty cool. And it kind of just branches out more and more. And it works out great.
Awesome. So you have these two different, I guess, career paths you could say you're going down. How hard is it though these days? I mean, now that so many artists are independent, and I mean, it's tough because record sales aren't much of a factor anymore. Touring is really big now to make money in the music industry. I mean, would you consider yourself a lifelong artist? I guess a music artist, or you consider yourself more you're doing your music now and then it'll eventually just get totally into graphic design and go that route?
Yeah, probably the second one, where I think right now I'm just kind of riding the wave of the music, which is really nice. And, it might not always be something I enjoy, when I'm 40 years old, like, I don't want to keep doing music all the time. But graphic design, I feel like, is something I could probably do all the time, because it's always changing. there's always new things to design, and I enjoy sitting down to work on some designs for really unique things, which is fun.
What's
Yeah,
some of the most unique things that you've worked on?
So something really random. I worked on Balls and Strikes. It's like a baseball batting cages, and they wanted me to make tickets and then posters for them that they hung up in their batting cages for everyone to see. But something that like really is huge is really cool to see when you see it in person.
It'll be easier when you're 40 or 50 and then sitting down and graphic designing instead of being at a concert and jumping up and down, trying to get people pumped.
Exactly.
We've seen it before, but
who knows where the music scene's going to be in the next, 20, 30 years as well.
Just holograms.
So, it could just be Tupac, from the grave coming back, and that's how everybody's going to be. So I don't know.
I could be sitting in my chair playing from home.
You could, yeah. I mean, you could be just, chilling in your basement or, at your computer. Hologram comes up, crowd of 15,000, 20,000 people, and you don't even have to be at the show. So
yeah, do you tour at all, or do you do any big tours, or do you keep it local for your shows?
So actually, that's brand new to me. I just started doing the whole live thing beginning of the summer, and I've done 3. They're all St. Louis, and then I'm doing 1 in December, also St. Louis, and then next year I'm trying to move around the states. I think it's
nice.
I think one of them is Indiana. And then I know some labels in Brooklyn who promote shows and do shows, so I'll probably see if I can move out there, or not move out there, but go out there, and then if I can start finding some different.
Where are your shows in St. Louis?
So usually downtown. Like the last one was at the Monocle, a venue, and then next month it's at Pop's Blue Moon.
Oh, cool.
So, it kind of depends.
Coming back to St. Louis in December, so I might if you have a show in December, kind of near Christmas time, I might come and see you.
Oh yeah, December 13th.
Okay, where's the show at on the 13th?
That's the Pops one.
That's the Pops one. Okay, well there you go. So do you think having your living in Missouri or the Midwest has kind of helped your music career, or do you think you're going to have to eventually move out to L.A. or New York or somewhere else more more vibrant to kind of make it to where you want?
I would say it definitely hasn't helped. Most of the time, everything is on the coast. So if people want me to come play, it's usually it's California or it's New York or it's, in the Carolinas, something like that. So it's a little easier if you're already out in one of those places. And, starting to get a little more here, I think, because I just started to do it. But I think if I was trying to blow up quickly, it would definitely have to be somewhere on the West Coast for sure.
Yeah, have you had to turn down anything because someone wanted to come out to California last minute and you just couldn't make it out? Has that really prevented you?
Yeah, I actually did have that where they wanted me to come to, I think it was San Francisco, but it was last minute, and then they didn't have the funds really to provide all the travel because of the flight from St. Louis to there, and then housing and all that. So, yeah, it's a little different than if, say, I already lived there, or if I even lived in north of that, just in close enough.
Cool. Well, do you have any other projects you're working on besides graphic design and music? Because I feel like when you're an artist, your mind's going all over just creatively. Is there anything you're kind of starting to get into and maybe developing as a hobby that could get bigger?
Not so much outside the whole music and design. I've started to incorporate some more live instruments. I'm playing guitar and some of mine. I'm starting to just step away from the sampled style and go almost a different route.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as that, not a whole lot, just because that's a big focus right now for me. But eventually I'll probably find something else that inspires me to do.
No, I think that's interesting too, just about your music, and what people should know is it's always changing. I mean, the fact that you started as a more true EDM artist and you're going into sampling and that sort of style, that jazz kind of style, and now you're looking at changing it again. I think that's cool. And like I said before, I don't think a lot of artists do that. And I think that's good to do because it really shows how diverse you are and the different people you can work with.
That's how all the successful artists are. I mean, you have to keep reinventing yourself. You have to keep pushing yourself forward and, staying ahead. So you have to be, 1, 2, 3 steps ahead of kind of what the trends are. And then when people catch up, you're like, okay, now that's popular. Now I'm moving on to doing something else. And you just got to keep reinventing yourself, especially if you're independent or you're kind of freestyling it. It's important to kind of, keep doing that. So I think you're on the right trend or on the right track there at least. So
yeah, it's definitely something I've been trying for a while, is because the whole style I make now was kind of a hobby that just kind of turned into a career. So it wasn't something I sat down and said, oh, I'm gonna do this. It was more of a wow, look what's coming of it. And then as it got bigger, it was like, okay, can I sustain this style and production for this long, or eventually I'm gonna have to change it up. And I think I'm getting to that point where if I change it up, I could probably go a little longer, but I would like to do something a little different, because it almost seems like when I make something now, it's mindless to the point where I'm almost flying through beats almost too easy, and I'm ready to take on the next challenge of music for sure.
Do you have any ideas to kind of what you want to mold your style into, or kind of what you want to challenge yourself with next?
I almost want to go dance, like not like the EDM dance. Have you heard of like say K Tronada, where it's almost slowed down?
Not heard of them.
It's like it's very, very bassy, but it's not festival dance. It's almost like R&B, kind of smooth, like I have now, but
it's kind of chilled out.
Different style. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like chilled out dance almost. Yeah.
Interesting. I'll have to kind of look into that. I mean, is for all the deep cuts that I threw out there for all the SoundCloud artists. There's so many of them out there, and with things kind of coming in and out and changing so much. I mean, I'm always up for listening to the kind of new stuff. So we're excited to hear what you have next coming up here, Chris. Very much so. Aaron, do you got any other final questions for Chris or?
Just give the people some plugs, man. Tell where they can find you and where we can finally see you live. I know you said you're coming up in December, but you want to list those off and see where we can get ready to see you in 2020.
Yeah, so I'm playing at Pop's Blue Moon, December 13th, and we're playing in Indiana in February, so I got to get the final details on that. But you can find me at almost everywhere. Twitter, bonus points 92, SoundCloud, bonus points, Facebook, bonus points, Spotify, bonus points, and Bandcamp, bonus points.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, yeah, definitely go out and check out Chris's stuff. He's got some awesome music. Give him a follow, give him a like. I'm sure he'd much appreciate it as well. Thanks for joining us on today's episode of the Weekendology Podcast. Check out our latest episode up on Apple Podcasts. So we talk with Playboy model Allie Rose about her career in modeling, how Instagram has changed the game. You can check us out on Twitter at Weekendology Pod, or on YouTube at Weekendology Podcast. Don't forget, we're also part of the Big Red World Podcasting Network. You can check them out on Twitter at Big Red Social, and they have a cool website with all the podcasts up there at bigredworld.org. We're also on Apple, Spotify, pretty much everywhere under the sun. So, hit us up, give us a like, let us know what your thoughts are in the description below. But thanks everybody for joining us on an episode of the Weekendology Podcast. We have new episodes every Friday, so check us out. We'll see you guys next week.